Hi everyone, it's me. Recently I saw this video, which kind of blew my mind because I'd never thought about this, considered this topic. I know absolutely nothing about this. But the differences between British, Canadian, and American roofing, it came up on my YouTube and immediately I was shocked. Canada roofing looks completely different. I'm hoping it's not just me that's surprised by this. And then we got American roofing. Now, in my mind, when I think of roofing, this is what I think of. Guys up there with the drills or the staple or whatever that is. Fascinating. So I saw this and I thought, I know literally nothing about construction differences between the UK and North America. If you're new here, my name's Alanna and I'm a Canadian, but I live here in the UK. And if you're not new here, hey, how's it going? I've been on YouTube for a shocking amount of time, to be honest. And for some reason, somehow, we have never talked about construction differences between North America and the UK. So that's what the vibe for today. Hope you have a seat. Hope you like this video. I don't know what we're about to see because I didn't plan that far ahead. But I saw this short and I just thought, my God, we've never talked about this before. Okay, what about this? US construction sites versus UK construction sites. And that is a mouthful.
Arms to the sky.
Hold on. Why do we have that down there? Get that. Oh my God.
Arms to the sky.
We've got some stretching happening. Getting ready for the day. Gotta limber up. Okay, that's actually kind of good. That's really good. I think one of the biggest differences in culture, just generally speaking, is that British people love to take the piss more than any other country that I've ever seen. Americans have their own sense of humor. Canadians have their own sense of humor. But British people, and I assume we're going to see this particularly with construction, they just love to take the piss. They love the banter. I've never seen it like this anywhere else. Okay, how about this one? Why US houses are built from wood and Europe uses brick. I know the UK brick is like the main building material. I don't know so much of new builds. If you're in the construction space, leave a comment down below. I literally know nothing.
In Germany, 90% of new houses are built with brick or concrete blocks. In Italy, almost every residential structure is masonry. In the Netherlands, brick. In the United Kingdom, brick. Across the entire European continent, the standard residential wall is built from a material that lasts for hundreds of years and does not burn. In the United States,
Lasts hundreds of years. Can we say that about new builds? Because I feel like one of the biggest complaints here in the UK. Okay, rewind. I'm trying to potentially move. I love this place, but I want to be in a building that has a garden. I'm desperate for a back garden. And the complaint that I get from loads of people when looking at properties is the new builds in England at least suck. And so them saying like, oh, they're built to last hundreds of years. Is that true? Leave a comment down below.
it's 90% of new single-family homes are framed with wood, 2x4s, plywood,
I think Canada's
oriented
the
strand
same.
board, the same material a beaver uses, the same material that
A
catches fire
beaver.
in seconds, the same material that termites consider a buffet.
This is true.
Two wealthy regions. Same century, same access to every building technology on the planet. Two completely opposite ways of constructing the most expensive purchase of an average person's life. Why? The standard answer is that America has more trees. And that is true. The country has one of the largest commercial forestry industries in the world. Lumber is cheap, abundant, and renewable.
Yeah, good point.
But that explanation only describes how the system started. It does not explain why it stayed. In 2026, even with mass timber technology and engineered concrete and prefab steel framing all available at competitive prices, 90% of new American homes are still wood. The real reason is not the trees. It is something economists call path dependence. Once a country sets up a building industry around one material, with its workers, its codes, its supply chains, and
That is a great point. You know what? I've never thought of that before. Thought of that? Did I say that properly? I've never thought of that before. I think in a lot of ways, Canada and the US are so similar. Like really, really similar. As much as maybe they like to think that they're different, I don't think they're that different. I think Canada is the same sort of system. Obviously, Canada has an obscene amount of timber. Half the country is trees. But this makes so much sense that once you've just sort of locked into the regulations and the procedures and even just like learning how and like in the trades of like learning how to build a house a certain way and you just sort of stick with it. That's very interesting. Okay, I've just jumped ahead a little bit. Side rant. I loathe, all right, I'm not mincing my words, I loathe when YouTube channels sit and watch someone's entire video and calls it a reaction. That's not a reaction. You're stealing that content. So we're just gonna watch a little bit more of this. I've jumped ahead just a snippet and then we will move on.
wood framing makes American housing cheap. A standard wood-framed home costs 10 to 60% less than an equivalent brick or concrete home.
Wow.
Construction is faster, and labor requirements are lower. The materials are easy to ship by rail or truck. Modifications are simple. Drywall comes off, new electrical goes in, drywall goes back on. An American contractor can throw up the bones of a house in 7 days with a crew that does not need years of specialized training. Masonry requires a different industry entirely. Bricklayers must apprentice for years.
This is
Mortar
fascinating.
must cure.
I really have never thought about this before. And maybe that's just me. Longer bricklayer apprenticeships, mortar cure times slow builds. That's true. Precision walls demand skill, high labor cost than wood. US Observer, very interesting. I'll put the link to everything that we watched in the description so you can watch more if you like. A lot of things, I feel like I've already said this and I have, and I know that I have, and I'm going to say it again. So many things that I've never considered. Let's watch a little bit of this, why 95% of American homes are made with 2x4s.
Here in America, 19 out of 20 homes built are built using good old 2x4s.
We know
and
that
drywall,
now.
otherwise known as stick framing. But the fact is, stick frame homes are going to last about 70 years before they need major repair or even replacement. Now you compare that to our counterparts over in Europe with their masonry built homes with concrete and blocks. They're going to last about 120 years before they need that same major repair or potentially replacement. So the question is, why on earth are we building houses like this when it's clearly an inferior construction method? Well, there's actually 3 reasons why this type of stick framing makes a lot of sense here in America. First up, affordability. To understand,
I love this guy. Huge shout out. I don't know how to say the name. Yes, I do. Learn to DIY. That is so good. I love this video already. I can tell I'm going to love this, and I will watch all of this later. We're not going to watch all of it on stream or on video because guess what? You know what I feel about that. You know how I feel. Affordability, so we know that.
versus outside of America. Now, if you consider population distribution, the average home size outside the United States is 900 square feet, or about 84 square meters. Now, in the United States, that number, 2,004.
I mean, comparing the world, I don't think is the greatest comparison, but it is a good point and not something that came up in the last video, at least not from what we watched. That's something that I have struggled with as a Canadian. I think if you grow up in the UK and this is what you know, right? This is all that you know. You've only ever lived here. You've only ever had a quote unquote British house. That's just what you know. You don't know how the rest of the world lives. And definitely in Canada, the home sizes typically are just so much bigger. And when you're used to that as at like a similar price, and then suddenly you're living in a house that is so much smaller and cramped, and typically I find damper, that's a tough exchange is not the word that I want. Experience isn't really the word I want either. You know the word I want. It's surprising, and it is something that you just have to get used to. I've known many foreigners, immigrants, expats, whatever you want to call them, that have come to the UK. And it's one of the things that they can't get over. It's like the houses here are just so small and cramped. You don't have built-in wardrobes. You don't have a basement. The backyards are tiny, and you know that in Canada you could get something 2-3 times the size at a similar price. Obviously, there's pros and cons to both, but it is tough, and it's something you just have to make do with. Like, you just have to accept or not accept and move. All right, I've just jumped ahead a little bit. We'll watch a little bit more. I love this video already. Big shout out. The quality in here is incredible. He seems like he really knows what he's talking about.
Put this in perspective. Let's
more.
take a look at that average US home we talked about before, 2,450 square feet. How long would it take to build that the United States way with stick framing like this and drywall and everything versus, let's say, the way a German house is built? Now, don't get me wrong, German houses are honestly fantastic. They're well engineered, they're sturdy, they're great. They just take a lot longer to build. So the question is, how long? If you were to actually build these side by side in the United States with our labor and the way our systems work at least, the stick frame house is going to take about 6 to 7 months. This is average, pretty normal amount of time for a house like that here in the US. If you do the German way, we're looking at somewhere between 10 and 15 months. That's like double. And so if you see the amount of demand that we have for new houses here in the US, and you say, oh, we're going to slow the housing process, the building process down, and we're going to double that time, we just can't go for that. Let me give you an example that's real world. This is from my life just a couple of years ago. We actually paid a home building company to build us a rental house that was 3,400 square feet, so quite a bit bigger than the average US home. They actually let us customize just about everything in it. All of the colors, the textiles, the cabinetry,
nice.
You name it. They even let us make some bigger decisions around where the entry was and different things like that. And all of this, name it.
Look at all those plug outlets. God, it's work of art. Oh, that's wonderful. Another thing that's totally unrelated, but kind of related, sockets in the bathroom. That's something you have to get used to because the power is different, yada, yada, yada. I'm just a girly. You can leave a comment explaining it down below. In North America, you have outlets in the bathroom. So you want to charge your toothbrush, you want to blow dry your hair, you want to straighten your hair, like any sort of the girly stuff where you want to plug in outlet in the bathroom. Fabulous. Here, no. And I already know what you're going to say because I've been on the internet so long. British people, when I talk about that, they go, ooh, you keep your toothbrush in the bathroom? That's disgusting. The bathroom is full of poop particles. That's gross. Do you flush your toilet with the lid open? Because you're gross. Don't ever flush your toilet with the lid open, my guys. That is wild. Did you not see that Mythbusters episode?
They even let us make some bigger decisions around where the entry was and different things like that. And all of this after we picked our model out or our layout from multiple plans that they had available. They actually built that whole thing from start to finish in 4 months. 4 months. That's just kind of nuts. So definitely faster than average, especially given the size. But these home building companies with stick framing, they know how to do it fast and they know how to do a good job. That house has been rented out that whole time and it's doing a great job because it was built quickly and the technology is there to do it well. Now, I may or may not have been...
I guess that's a good point as well. It is much faster, but they're also like good quality builds. Again, if you've got information, do leave a comment. The new builds here in the UK, is that still masonry? And I feel like they go up like somewhat fast, but everybody I know complains that the quality is really, really bad.
At the construction site just about every day, or every night I should clarify, I was just checking out how fast they were going. It was fascinating to see how quickly this house could go from a dirt field to a hole in the ground to
basement
a full-framed house in just a few months. Our country has been figuring out how to make homes faster and faster for centuries. They're making them better, they're making them stronger, and even though we figured out how to keep it affordable and how to do it fast, all of that is totally dependent on one last thing, and that is our third reason, America's natural resources.
We've talked about this already, having the access to timber and stuff. Fascinating. You know what? I'm learning so much. Big shout out to Learn to DIY. This is a great channel. I will be back. Okay, what about Ben the Builder? Why do new builds feel cheaper compared to older homes? This is kind of what I touched on. People talking about like new builds, while they may be going up a bit fast, they don't feel as nice.
Usually with time, things improve. We become more productive, more efficient, we build stuff to a higher quality. But with new builds in the UK, that just doesn't seem to be the case. I'm a construction manager building 52 new houses in the UK, and today I'm going to give you 5 reasons why new builds just aren't as high quality as they used to be. And trust me, you're really not going to expect point number 5. It might actually...
Ben, you building these many Ben, you... Okay. Interesting. I feel really old in this moment. Okay, I think this is the beginning of point number
This is going to be
one.
interesting. To understand this, we have to understand the moment the UK quietly shifted from building out of brick and block and changing to building out of a lightweight steel frame. You see, it takes around 6 to 12 weeks to build the outside, just the outer shell of a house made out of brick and blockwork. But when building a house out of a steel frame, it only takes 5 to 10 days.
I didn't realize we were using steel frames, or perhaps certain types of new builds are using steel frames. But when you see it only takes 5 to 10 days, kind of like the lumber homes in North America, where these frames can go up so fast.
That's it. That's a 45-day difference in construction time. Now, if you ask me, that's pretty impressive. But unfortunately, this is where things start to take a turn. Yes, we can build the outside of the house much faster, but we lose the quality.
That picture sucks. That is what a new build feels like to me. Where's the character that blows?
So you see this. You can start to, it's easy to install. You can see we've got the DPC then. The metal frame sits on top of that. It gets prefabricated in a factory. It gets brought onto site, and then the steel fixers will just lift it into place and drill it into the slab.
That's incredible. And not something that I was aware of. I don't know if all new builds are doing that, but what's this spike here? We'll jump to number 4.
Let's go to step number 3, why you feel like new builds in Britain are so flimsy. Now we get to a part of the video that everyone can relate to, the internal finishes. And this is why so many people talk about the quality of the new builds, because you notice it. When you're inside the house, you notice
that's the stuff you're going to see. That's true.
The doors, especially the doors, the windows. You notice just how flimsy they are compared to an older house. And you have every right to feel that way because it's true. Because it's 100% true. Knock on the door knock on a door in a new build in the UK, and it's hollow, it's light, it's, you know, you can even look at the hinges and just understand that, like, the hinges are just smaller than hinges they would use on a house in the 1990s because the door is lighter. You know, a door in the 1990s is heavier, it's solid timber, there's thickness, there's weight to it. The same as the walls. The walls on a new build, like I've shown you, you've seen the steel frame, you put insulation in the cavity, and boom, you put a sheet of plasterboard on top. But let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this wall right here in a house built before just after World War II is solid stone. And you can feel that. It has weight, it has character, it has density, it has heaviness. But like we've mentioned before, you know, builders in the UK now, it's not like we've lost the ability to build to a high quality. We can build to a high quality, but the environment, the culture, the pressure we're under doesn't really allow us to build with that sort of integrity. And this is what people...
That is so interesting. Ben the Builder, thank you very much. I'm learning so much today. We're gonna leave Ben there because again, I don't want to watch all of his video. Do check him out. This is really fascinating, and especially I think both of the long form videos that we've watched are people that are actively involved in this space and they seemingly know what they're talking about. I certainly do not. What about this one? American houses flimsier than European.
About American houses, like, oh, look at them on the inside. They're so weak and flimsy.
I mean, they are weak
things like,
and flimsy.
But the whole point...
They're also weak and flimsy on the outside.
But the whole point, they are supposed to be moddable, and that is the point. Do you know why drywall is so commonly utilized in the United States? Because this wasn't the case. It wasn't always like this.
It's cheap. Also, don't touch any of your drywall.
No, I'm not doing that just yet. But yes, what they used to use before, and what was the most common building material, was plaster. And in 1906, that's actually when drywall as a thing ended up being developed, but people didn't want to use it. Because once you're already doing things a certain way, you're not going to change how it is that you do things.
Fair.
And plaster was more labor intensive. So guess what changes?
What changes?
World War II. All the men who are typically involved in construction and like heavy labor and whatnot, they end up getting drafted or volunteering and going off to war, which means that a lot of building at home still needs to happen, but they don't have enough labor to do it in the labor intensive way that they did. What gets popular? Drywall. because it requires way less time, way less effort, way less material, way less people, and you can do it far more efficiently. So in the building craze of the 50s that followed, drywall allowed for the boom of American suburbs.
Honestly, prefer drywall because it's easier to access the cotton candy behind them. This is also a good point though. German here, most of our big cities were completely leveled and we still rebuilt them the old way. Drywall, the fast food of construction. I mean, there's pros and cons to both, right? They're two completely different setups, two completely different countries. We're just talking about the UK instead of like all of Europe, obviously. But if we go off what Ben the Builder said about how new builds are being built differently, this maybe superiority of like British homes are so much better. It seems like you guys know how to build a long-lasting home, but are no longer interested in doing that. Who am I to say? I don't know anything. Oh, this just came up from Ben the Builder as well. Maybe because we just watched one from him or because I'm searching for building stuff. How to cost a new house in the UK. Fascinating. Let's have a look.
How much it costs to build a new house in the UK? Starting off with 21 grand being the cost to create the foundation for the house. Next up is the steel frame. Now altogether the steel frame will cost roughly £22,000, so that's split up between the first floor and the ground
Obviously
floor.
it's dependent on the size of the
slab
house and everything, but
weather protection sheathing board, the flooring and the foundation is all coming up to £44,500. Then the scaffolders come in then and put in a crash deck, which is protection for the carpenters for when the roof goes on top. And the roof usually costs £10,350 ish. So that takes up the total number to £54,850 for the structural frame first fix of a new house in the UK. If you like this type of content, remember,
I mean, we can't stop there, but intriguing. New builds in the UK are increasingly using light gauge steel frames because they offer much faster construction times. We know that. Better resistance to rot and pests. Okay, fair. Help developers meet strict environmental regulations. We have not talked about that. So with the UK's focus on net zero targets and the future home standard, light steel framing pairs well with the advanced installation techniques to deliver high thermal efficiency and air tightness. That's not something that's come up in the videos, at least the bits that we watched. Fascinating. If you have any experience with this kind of stuff, maybe you're a builder yourself, maybe you've bought a new build, maybe you've built your own house, do leave your thoughts down below. I find this stuff so interesting, and it's something that I really have no prior knowledge of at all. If you would like to watch something else, can I suggest this one? I learned all about British inventions. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, bye!